Nothing. I mean, any contact with Baltimore City police, you can't win.
Ali Bey doesn't like Darius's chances of success in court because he's had so little of it himself over the last 20 years. He was first convicted of a crime when he was 13 years old.
How many times have you had law enforcement contact in your life?
A lot.
What's not?
Multiple times.
5 times.
Even higher.
10 times.
A little bit more higher.
You've had more than 10 law enforcement contacts?
Yes.
15?
I know it's more than 10.
Who do you blame for your 10 plus law enforcement contacts?
I can blame myself for some, and I also can blame the whole process of how the city is. Baltimore. It's just that in Baltimore, the police are always going to look at you different. You're always going to be singled out. I'm not saying it's all police, but we're talking majority of them. It's just the whole entire system, the judiciary system in Maryland.
Isaac Sawyer is just 8 years old, but already his mother worries he could one day enter that system.
I used to say that how do I put this? I guess not my biggest fear, but I used to say I'm going to be standing in front of the judge telling him, please don't give my son a death penalty. He's just a product of his environment. And he tried, and it's hard to think that one day your son's going to be in jail, that your son's going to be, but I'm realistic about things, and with the way his education is going now, with the way his behavior is, and like you said, Baltimore City, and I think it's a very strong possibility that he will be, and it scares me.
Before becoming mayor of Baltimore, Kurt Schmoke was a federal prosecutor. He says there is definitely a bias in the criminal justice system against the poor.
Well, the criminal justice system is biased against low-income people. That's the issue. I mean, and so to the extent that we have more African-American men that are low-income, it's going to have a negative impact. I mean, two guys committing a charge with the same crime. One who has resources gets out on bail. The other one is stuck in the system. One gets a private attorney, one gets a public defender. No offense, but we know that resources make a big difference in the criminal justice system. So the system is biased against those who are low income, and that has a terrible, terrible impact on the African American community.
They're disadvantaged in income, they're disadvantaged in jobs, they're disadvantaged in education. I don't think they're treated in a negative way merely because of that. But it means that we don't have the programs and services and other types of things that are necessary to bring them from that disadvantaged situation to a positive situation.
And a lack of fathers in the home also negatively impacts black males. In 2010, 24% of American families lived in single-parent homes. 66% of black children are raised in single-parent households. The overwhelming majority of those homes are led by women. Darius and Isaac are products of female-led single-parent households. So am I. So too is Cliff White.
Hey, how you doing?
Dude,
What's going
I
on?
do know this face. I do know this face.
Of course, I had a mustache in those days, of course.
Wiley is a former All-American track athlete.
This is my mother, Shirley Wiley.
Shirley, oh, how are you?
His mother, Shirley Wiley, raised a total of 11 children, 9 of her own, as well as 2 grandchildren. All with the help of her mother, Cliff's grandmother. All but one of Shirley's children had early success, and she did it in one of the poorest parts of Baltimore.
I would just like them to have a life and just do better than I did. Because, go to college, just try to get a good job, try to, take care of your kids and things like that. Yeah.
She says her secret was a strong family unit, stressing the importance of education and discipline.
I had a little belt.
You had a belt. I knew it was a
I
belt.
had a little belt. Tapped the little legs.
You tapped. It was a little light tap.
Not no,
Nothing heavy.
no marks.
No
nothing.
marks.
No.
No raised skin.
My mother is very, very polite. She's very, very polite to you, okay? She said she kind of tapped you a little bit and everything. She didn't tap you, okay? She's heavy-handed, okay? And fast, okay? And fast. My older brother and I went into a 5 and dime store and we stole something. We stole something. I can hear her saying right now, I can't stand a thief and I hate a liar. Okay? And I don't know where we were I don't know the first grade, kindergarten, or wherever it was. But I never stole another thing the rest of my life. Okay? I remember that whooping to this day. Okay?
I certainly made life difficult for my mother once we moved to a neighborhood outside of Baltimore. Again, I was attending a nearly all-white high school and getting another shot at a better education. But again, feelings of insecurity and defensiveness returned. But this time, when I acted out, I was tempting more serious trouble.
And that's what I did here. I stole records and other small things. I guess because of peer pressure. Not thinking about the consequences, really. You get away with something the first time, you kind of think you're invincible, and that's what I thought at the time. I thought I was invincible. I certainly wasn't thinking about my future, what all this would mean.
That all changed when I was caught stealing snack food from a supermarket.
Someone called the principal, the principal at my high school, who sent the vice principal over to literally pick me up and get me back to school.
My vice principal at the time, Mr. Owens, gave me a break. He didn't call the police, and he didn't kick me out of high school. From that moment on, I stuck close to one of my best friends in high school, Reggie Brooks. He was a star on the football and basketball teams, and some of his discipline rubbed off on me. Today, he is the athletic director of a high school just outside Baltimore, and he is still beating me at basketball. Single-parent households make the role of highly functioning schools essential in the development of black boys. Without a father in the home, the work of a single mother is often overwhelming.
Is his father in his life in any significant way?
No, not at all. Can you put it away? Thank you. My son asked me about his father, and I told myself that I won't talk bad about his father to him, because you never know what might happen in the future. They might have a wonderful relationship later on in life. But when he asked me, I say, he's not here. If he wanted to be, he would be. I'm here. And I'll leave it at that. But when you take your son to the mall and he stands in front of the wishing well and you give him a dime to throw in and he looks at the dime and says, I wish my daddy would come see me. Broke down crying. Couldn't help it. Start to tear up when I think about it right now. It's terrible. But you can't make anybody be there that doesn't want to be. And I'm mommy, I'm daddy. And you got Auntie Kika, and you got Uncle Blue. So, has his Uncle Frank, my brother. So, he has people who cares about him. And I know it hurts him that his father's not there. Just like it hurt me growing up when my father wasn't there. Hopefully, we're enough for him. That's how I try to look at it. Bless our mommies. Bless our daddies. You just want what's best for your kids. And you try to give it to them, but people don't realize how hard it is.
God bless.
How literally hard it is for you to try to raise a child. Period. Much less by yourself. But I think people take it for granted. The time they get to spend with their kids. The fact that they can take off and go to the kids' Sunday T-ball game, and they can, people take a lot of stuff for granted and they don't realize.
Hey, little.
I know that when a child is willing to work hard, when a parent says, I'm going to work with my son and make sure this boy gets what he needs. What does he need? And I say he needs to learn to read, to compute, to study, to respect people, to keep his room clean. And you've got a family working to do that, whether it's a grandmother or whoever it is. If there's somebody in that home helping that child to do the right thing, that child will be okay.
But Hrabowski knows that America needs much more than just okay to reverse years of academic declines, particularly where African Americans are concerned. Right now, South Korea leads the world in producing engineers and scientists. In America, just 6% of those 24 years old or older have degrees in science and engineering. And of that 6%, about 2% of those Americans with degrees in science and engineering are blacks and Hispanics. Given those statistics, you'd think there would be outrage from civil rights and political leaders on this issue. You'd be wrong.
It's not sustained. It comes in spurts. Particularly there's a crisis or something in the community with some of our kids that are not doing something. We get a kid, forbid, to get murdered out in the community, then you get outrage. But there's nothing I don't think that's sustained and long term that can really get people's attention, grab their ear and say, this is what we need to do to impact education.
The level of outrage that we should have coming from many segments of our communities, black community, white, is not there. And I think it's for a variety of reasons. There are a lot of success stories out there. That's one thing.
So help you God. So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
We have a huge success, symbolic success, in having a black person elected president of the United States. And it's hard then to argue to the broader community that black people aren't making progress the way every other minority group in the country is not making, has made progress in the history of this country.
Until we resolve this issue, which I think is such a civil rights issue. I think it is the civil rights issue. People talk about technology being a civil rights issue. No, when we're talking about human beings as a class not having opportunities, having those extinguished early on in elementary school, what can we hope for as a nation in terms of our competitiveness? So it's not only the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do.
Just a week after meeting him, and on one of the most decisive days of his young life, Darius gets the kind of break my vice principal gave me years ago. The judge at his hearing on weapon and drug charges dismisses the case against him.
The case has been dismissed, and hopefully I get an expansion day in my career in electrical engineering moving to university.
Looking forward to going to college.
Of course.
It's not his fault that his mother's a becoming addict. It is not. And despite the fact that I've been struggling all his life, he triumphs. My baby, I'm honest with you, he got a scholarship. I won't let him go down for something I did. No.
Darius gets to go to college and pursue his dream of becoming an electrical engineer. But what about Isaac Sawyer?
Is Isaac going to be okay?
I know he is, because I'm going to make sure he is okay. When I was younger, right before I had Isaac, I was a little hood rat. I was a little hood rat running the street. Like, Isaac is the best thing that's ever happened to me. It made me calm down completely because I knew at the end of the day, if nobody else needed me, if nobody else loved me, he did. And it just changed everything. It made me calm down, get a job, be normal.
What's clear to me is this. If the idea of American exceptionalism is to be more than a slogan, education has to lead the way. And no child can be left behind. The minimum, non-negotiable, has to be that every black boy in America be able to read at grade level and attend some college. Surely, setting reading and college as non-negotiables for black boys can't be that difficult for a race that has achieved so much in America while overcoming so much.
So the question, do I believe we'll solve the problem of black males? We have no choice. We have no choice. We have to. They are Americans. I mean, what makes America special is when we've had problems in the past, and we've had problems that seem insurmountable. We couldn't get this country to even talk about slavery. For a long time, they had to disagree. Let's not even talk about it, right? We went to war within ourselves because of those kinds of issues, and yet we finally came to grips. You and I could not have imagined being in our position. When we were children, we could not have imagined being on major television or being the president of a white university. And yet, that's how far this country has come. And what made the difference? Education. Education transforms lives.
Education transforms lives. Yes, it can. For Eddie, Darius, Stephen, and Isaac. And yes, it has for this black boy from a single-parent household and humble beginnings from Baltimore, Maryland.
My students, I do appreciate you taking the time to watch this video today in the class of Straight Talking Room 503. And remember, if God says the same, I shall represent the 6th District on the school board in my hometown. My first agenda item would be to recommend to the Board of Education the school that they closed in my hometown, known as Whitehall Elementary, that I have a plan for that school, and I've prayed about it, and God has heard of my prayer, that school be a pre-8 school in the East Jackson District. Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to join me and the Reverend James Baxter as we push forward to have a pre-K school in the East Jackson area that's been neglected. Ladies and gentlemen, those buildings that are deteriorating in the black community and our children, and in particular black males as well as black females that are not reading on grade level, reading proficiency is a problem that we need to correct. There's no one serving any time in prison, haven't even been indicted for misappropriating of funds that poor children, black and white, have not been able to receive the quality education that they so desperately deserve. But I say to the parents as we conclude this class, keep praying, keep the faith, even though your child may not be acting right. Know that if you keep the faith, it's already been promised to you. It says, raise up a child in the way they should go. And when they're older, they won't depart. God is telling you that if you continue to do your job, you raise them, He'll bless them, and success will come their way. I have been your host, Morris Merriweather, the professor in the class of 503, the class of Straight Talk, and the author of Enough is Enough, public education has spiraled out of control. Until next class time, remember that God loves you, and so do the professor. Take care, ladies and gentlemen. See you next week. Don't be late.